to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show and for your Arsenal news show this morning as we go into the game against Wimbledon this evening. Plenty to talk about, plenty of interesting stuff, and, you know, even something funny for you to discover if you haven't done already. I know plenty of you have left some comments on a video that I'm going to talk about ever so shortly. But good morning to everyone in the chat box. Good morning, Carl, Kigi, Mo, Mr. Harrison, Carnaby, Dom, Tommy. We've got Wrath of Aries, Realer than Most, Colin, Tom, Jose. Plenty of you. This being has no name. Good morning to you, whoever you are. Thank you ever so much, guys, for tuning in today. And I hope you're well. I hope you're doing good. Please drop a like on today's video and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Good morning to everybody. I can see all of you so far in the chat box. Let's crack on, though. Of course, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Arsenal Way. And specifically regarding the Arsenal Way, yesterday uploaded a video of pure embarrassment, it's fair to say, in the Tom versus Bailey showdown. You can see the disappointment on my face already in that thumbnail. Link to the video is in the description. If you haven't watched it, please do. It will entertain you for 6 minutes of your morning. To be honest, I love James, who is our commentator and our voiceover man and our social guy, because he just doesn't hold back with his insults, and I love him for it, to be honest. If you've ever watched Come Dine With Me, and the commentator on Come Dine With Me, James is like our Come Dine With Me football equivalent, is what he is. So please do go and watch what is just a very funny video, basically, of me embarrassing myself hugely. Also, if you haven't already checked out yesterday evening, we uploaded the first of a brand new series on the channel, our Let's Talk Arsenal Fans series, in which I'll be talking to fans, journalists, people that are recognizable within the Arsenal community, getting more info about how they became Arsenal fans and some of the things that they've experienced in the world of Arsenal. Lee talked to us about kind of how AFT has changed his life, and even the threats that he's experienced in person, more so even than in across social media, but genuine in-person stuff. So if you haven't watched that back, it is the pinned video on the channel. So please make sure you go and give it a watch. But we start off with the news ahead of tonight's game against Wimbledon. That's Granit Xhaka and Mohamed El Neni were the only players that we needed to be given an update for by the club ahead of the game in terms of team news. And that specifically is that Xhaka is still suspended and El Neni is being assessed ahead of the game. He returned to training much sooner than expected and could be available for tonight's game, providing Mikel Arteta with an additional option in midfield. So we may see the Egyptian international move into that midfield role. We will wait and see. In regards to training, plenty of youngsters were spotted training with the first team ahead of this game. Tim Akinola, Salah Adine, and of course Charlie Patino were all included in first team training, and I'm assuming there were plenty of others as well. And fingers crossed tonight we'll see an opportunity for some of them to play alongside their senior colleagues. So make sure you tune in tonight to see how they get on, of course. Now, Mikel Arteta has been speaking ahead of the game, specifically about the fans. And if you remember, about a week ago, Pep Guardiola received a lot of criticism for asking more fans to attend their games as City struggled to fill the Etihad Stadium in their Champions League tie against RB Leipzig. Arsenal, however, are not having any such issues in regards to a League Cup Wednesday night game against lower league opposition Wimbledon. They've sold or are expecting around 50,000 in attendance this evening. And Arteta says, I'm so happy to hear that we have sold so many tickets because the boys are really looking forward to playing at the Emirates again. Winning that game is the only priority right now. And then we can think about Spurs and how special that is as well. Drop in the indirect shade towards Pep Guardiola and his thoughts around stadium attendances. Loving that. Loving the fact that we've got, obviously, a very committed fan base. It is a very cheap game, and fair play to the club for lowering the price. You've also got the situation where it is very hard for anyone to watch the game this evening on a digital point of view. good luck to those that are going to attempt to watch it. It may have to be an audio only evening tonight and then watching back the highlights when they become available. But it's going to be tricky for a lot of people to watch it, which is probably one of the big reasons as to why the game is so well attended. But, always a chance to dig out Manchester City at any opportunity. Luka Jovic is a player that has been, he's definitely a player that has been linked with Arsenal today. There's plenty of stories out there at the moment, and Jovic is supposedly, who was bought for 60 million euros by Real Madrid from Frankfurt, hasn't really gone to plan. And we are in the know that Arsenal will be looking at a striker very soon. And Jovic has supposedly made the list of possible targets. Now, it is expected that he would go for a significant amount of money less than that 60 million euro price tag that was originally put on his name when he moved from Germany to Spain. I would not, to be honest, look to move for Jovic. I don't think Arsenal are in the business for a rebuild project, which, let's face it, Jovic definitely is a bit of a rebuild project for Arsenal. In fact, any club that buys him this summer. He has struggled massively since he moved to Real Madrid. He spent time on loan with Frankfurt in 2021, scoring 4 goals and 19 Bundesliga appearances. But this season, he remains as a Real Madrid player, and we will see how he gets on. But I personally probably would not move forward. So there you go. Now, last things to talk about, arguably one of the most important things, and both of these are available as articles that I have written for Football.London. The first is regarding Charlie Patino's contract situation, which could provide some explanation as to why Arsenal didn't decide in the end to move for Houssem Aouar. The young player is hopefully going to be given an opportunity tonight. And there is, according to our chief Arsenal correspondent, Chris Wheatley, all the will in the world that he will sign a new deal with the club, despite there being Barcelona interests, which the Mirror claim that there is. I'm not sure why you'd go to Barcelona at this moment in time. They're not particularly good. But Barca are said to be interested in Barca are expected to be interested in Patino, but he is expected to sign a new contract as soon as he turns 18 next month. And the second thing, I was, what's the right word? I was a bit frustrated by some comments of Jenas, and so I was like, you know what? I'm not just going to sit here and stew. I'm going to write about him. So I did. Jenas started speaking about how Arsenal should kind of mirror our Manchester United's approach to bringing in kind of former players into the hierarchy, as they've seen with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer becoming manager, Darren Fletcher becoming involved at an executive level, completely ignorant of the fact that Arsenal have brought in Edu as technical director, Mikel Arteta as manager, Per Mertesacker as head of the academy. Steve Bold ended a 20-year association with the club from the academy to assistant manager and back to under 23s head coach. Freddie Ljungberg was the head of the under 23s for a while before moving into an assistant manager role. And of course, Thierry Henry himself used to be involved with the under 18s before moving away to continue his punditry and then go into coaching. He suggested why the likes of Ashley Cole, Sol Campbell, and Patrick Vieira had not been utilised, despite the fact that they've all followed coaching routes after their playing days, not something they could have pursued at Arsenal. It was a lazy swipe, is what I would describe it, the way Arsenal run, and an attempt to kind of suggest a way in which Arsenal have fallen without really knowing too much about what's going on at the club. And I wasn't going to sit there and accept that. So I broke it apart. And even, I'm not going to sit there and attack the comments, because it's always important that you suggest solutions. And I go into suggesting what actually should be done from a hierarchy perspective to say, let's try and, arrest that slide. So go and check that out. Go give both those articles a read and let us know how you feel about them. The last thing is that no Raw reaction show after the game. One of the reasons being exceptionally difficult to find a way to watch it. The other reason being I'm on a shift until 12 midnight tonight. So I won't be able to do a show for you at midnight. And so obviously we will talk about the game in the 8 a.m. show tomorrow morning. So please make sure, if you haven't already, you are subscribed to the channel to get that content. And lastly, as I've already mentioned, if you haven't already, go and watch me embarrass myself playing football, with a link in the description to the video on the Arsenal way. It'll be 6 minutes of your life that you will wish that you've used up watching that video, because it is quite entertaining. As I say, James, our commentator, does not hold back whatsoever. And that is all of today's story. So thank you ever so much for watching. And we now move on to the final part of the show, which is, of course, the question and answer section. So if you do have a question, if you do have a theory, a query, anything along those lines, do not hesitate. Throw them into the chat box and we'll go through as many as we can in the next 10 minutes or so. Wesley says, would you rather sell Holding or Marie to make space for Saliba next season? I think Holding, I would rather move on. Marie, of course, left-footed, really good backup to Gabriel. I know Saliba can play on the left-hand side, although he's been playing on the right of a 3 for Marseille this season. But Holding, I think, as a homegrown player, longer contract, you're going to get a good fee for him. Get the money in, get Saliba in, get him playing next season. That is how I would approach that one. Hello again, good to have in the chat, mates. Wilson says, why does Jenas have an agenda against Arsenal? I mean, it seems that there are a lot of people that aren't particularly fond of Arsenal, kind of from a punditry perspective. It just frustrates me when people just wildly make claims about Arsenal from a very kind of, high perch in, from very influential positions without really knowing what's being said. And so it's important to, be critical and to break down those comments and to make and help people understand that that is not, in fact, the case of why we are where we are. EGTV says, my question for today's time is Patrick Vieira or Kante? I've been seeing this a lot on social media recently. I mean, they're not even the same player. Kante is a defensive midfielder. Patrick Vieira was box to box. Everyone thinks that Patrick Vieira was like this amazing defensive midfielder. Patrick Vieira was not. Gilberto Silva was the guy that played behind Patrick Vieira. So if you want to talk about like the player to compare Kante with in the certain position that he played, you need to compare him to Gilberto Silva. Is Kante better than Gilberto Silva? I think he probably is. Yes, I love Gilberto Silva. He's one of my favourite players from the Invincibles era, but I'm not going to be ignorant to the fact of how good Kante is. But Patrick Vieira was on a different level, different period, different time, different opposition, different team. He was unreal for a player. It's like people who try to say that like Aguero, despite scoring more Premier League goals or whatever it is better than Henry. Like, no. Henry is the greatest Premier League striker, period. He's better than anyone else that's come into the Premier League. His goal record is one. His creation is another. The way in which he could take the game by himself. He wasn't a striker that needed to rely on service. He could turn a game on his own. Goals like he scored against Leeds in the rout during the Invincible season. Goals like against Real Madrid in 2006. Goals against Liverpool in the Invincible run. Like these goals, these situations that we find ourselves in is just, honestly, I don't get it. Daniel Robert, no. Kante is not a box-to-box midfielder. He's just not. Wallace says, good morning, Tom. Which Arsenal player do you think will shine most this season? I think that you've got to look towards, for me towards someone like, I was going to say Pepe, but the thing is, I'm not sure Pepe's going to play too many minutes. I think Saka will eventually get moved to the right-hand side. I'll probably go for Tomiyasu, actually, I really want to say Tomiyasu, because the thing about Tomiyasu is that he's an unknown factor. No one knows anything about him. So arguably he's like kind of level is so low down that of the expectation of his quality. Anything he does is just going to be like, wow, like who is this guy? So I really think that Tomiyasu could be the guy that shines the most for us this season. And I'm looking forward to seeing him play. Lokonga is up there as well as someone that possibly could do that as well. Jason says, going to the game tonight, excited to see the likes of Martinelli, Balogun, and hopefully Lacazette leading the line up front, going with a 3-0 win. Absolutely. I can't wait to see all of these youngsters play tonight. Fingers crossed they can get on the score sheet as well. Rod says Kante isn't a DME. Okay, I'll hold my hands up. He's not an out-and-out defensive midfielder, but there's no way that Kante is box to box. Like you have midfielders like Vieira you look at that got so far forward as well. Kante, yes, he presses up with Chelsea because they're a dominant side with their possession. But Kante, I'm sorry, he's not a box to box. He's not an out-and-out number 8 for me. Jorginho would sit, yeah, for sure. You can say Jorginho is kind of the sit in front of those back line. Kante, you play slightly ahead of him because he's got the energy more so than Jorginho. But Kante is not a box-to-box midfielder. He's just not. It's just not his position. Jonathan said, heard any rumours about Noah Lang yesterday? If we're really going to sign a winger, I think we should go for a more senior player like a Kostic, a Lozano, or a Rafinha, or a Baradi. I agree in that. Yeah, I don't think we should be going for a winger. I don't think that's kind of the position that Arsenal should be looking for. To be honest, we should be looking to continue at developing Pepe and Saka and Martinelli. Smith Rowe can play in a wider area too, and I think that we should be looking, for me anyway, at bringing in a top-class striker in the summer alongside another central midfielder that's going to go alongside Partey, that's going to compete with Lokonga, and that's going to just shove Xhaka to the wayside. That's what I would be doing personally. Safiso says, have you heard of the possible swap deal between Xhaka and McKennie? I haven't heard anything about that, Safiso. So, no, I'm afraid I haven't. So I can't comment on that whatsoever. Will I take it? I know a certain American friend of mine who's currently situated in Europe that you all know very well would, but I don't think that's going to happen. Joshua says, Tom, how disappointed will you be if Kolasinac and Elneny play tonight? I mean, not massively disappointed. I just want us to get through. I want to see the youngsters play, sure, but as long as we get through, I'm happy, to be honest. I'll be disappointed if Patino doesn't get any minutes. That would disappoint me. I'm not fussed who else plays. I just want to see us get through at the end of the day because I want to see us target the cups this season. Ansa says, I think Erdegaard is going to carry us. Ludwig says, Pepe and Aubameyang is our biggest goal threat. Why would we not play him? I don't know. I get why people want to drop Aubameyang for Lacazette. I just wouldn't do it. Lacazette has got less than a year left on his deal. Aubameyang is going to be here for at least a year and a bit. We've got a situation where Aubameyang's always outscoring Lacazette. Always. So he's our most potent striker. Use him. Use him. Play him into form. He's got more finishing abilities than Lacazette for me in terms of he'll score more goals during the season. Use Aubameyang over Lacazette. Manu says, from watching Tommy play from my home every week and watching Lokonga play for 2 years, I would have never thought they'd make it at the top. Who at the club is responsible for those signings? Is it Edu? It's not actually Edu. Edu is very much involved in the Lokonga side of things. Arteta is more so the Tommy side of things. So you got a bit of both. So there you go. We need Vlahovic, says Seb. Jamie says, hi, Tom. If you had 100 million budget next summer, what centre mid and striker would you bring in? It's a great question. 100 million is not a lot of money to bring in 2 world-class players. If you said to me, I've got 100 million budget, well, I'm going to sell Holding for 15 million quid. I'm going to sell... What else am I going to sell? Maitland-Niles for 10 to 15 million pounds. So I've got myself 120 to 130 million now, Jamie. I'm changing your question. I don't care. And I'm probably... I mean, I'd test the waters with Vlahovic and say, look, and I know I'm contradicting myself because he's a very young striker, but I think he looks to be like your Haaland type, that level of youngster coming through at his age of finishing ability and skill. To be fair, if we got to the Champions League, I'd be putting in the release clause for Haaland and saying, look, we're an option. Do you want to come? Your mate Erdegaard's here. If we got Champions League, which is incredibly unlikely at this stage. But yeah, Vlahovic. The other one is obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I like Calvert-Lewin. I think he's got bundles of potential. So he's definitely someone that we could look at. Central midfielders, I love Bruno Guimaraes. He's an amazing player. And I think he's someone that certainly would add to the team. Yves Bissouma, after this season, there's no way Brighton are letting him go for anything less than 50 million, I can't think. So 50 mil on Basuma, 70 mil on a Vlahovic or a Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Maybe that is the way that I would go, Jamie. So there you are. Osimhen is a good shout as well. Isaac, I'm not as sure. Like, if you're going to sign a 21-year-old, like Vlahovic is the one. Isaac is not as good as a Vlahovic right now for me from watching both of them play. Just for me, Vlahovic is the better option. Tono says, imagine the scenes, Agent Martin bringing Haaland to the Arsenal. Imagine the scenes of it happening. Jonathan says, I think Kante is more like a Rodri, a Torreira, a Zakaria. A box-to-box midfielder would be more someone like a Ramsey. Yes, John, you're on the same lines as me, mate. Like, your box-to-box midfielders, like, whilst I don't think Rodri, Torreira, and Zakarias are out-and-out sixes, although Torreira should have been played more as a six, but his position has kind of changed, unfortunately, because of what happened with Unai Emery. I think there's kind of this middle ground between a 6 and an 8, kind of this hybrid position, which I think Kante probably falls under. Which is why it's so easy to misconstrue his position. I've done it with thinking he was a DM initially. He's not. Others have done it think he's a box-to-box. He's not. He's kind of in this middle ground between the two. That's why he can occupy both positions really well. But Ramsey, for me, is one of those perfect number 8 box-to-box definitions of a player. The engine, the ability to get into the box. Like Joe Willock as well. I look at Joe Willock, someone who can play as an 8, as a box-to-box and get forward, can get back, and get into the box and score. That's what I think of as a box-to-box. Vieira was, for me, the energy, the ability to get forward, support the attack, get back and defend the back line. That is Vieira. But Vieira's energy, dynamism, strength, brutality, intelligence. That is Vieira. Just different player to Kante, better than Kante. Just there isn't another centre midfielder that's come like Vieira. It's just as simple as that for me. Tono, keep looking, mate. Stephen says, hi, Tom. Question, Bamford Guimaraes is my choice. Do you agree? Bamford and Guimaraes. There's just something about Bamford that's not fashionable, is it? And it's probably my naivety. It's probably my what's the right word? Ignorance. It's probably my ego saying, oh, Bamford, really? But, you know, Bamford could have an amazing season. I think he got, 16 goals in the Premier League last year. If he can get 20 goals in the Premier League this year, you'd have to say, why not? I mean, how old is Bamford now? He's the type of striker that you go, no. Like, why would you sign him? He's going to be 29 in September of next year. That might put me off. The age might put me off. The fact he's going to be 29 in September of next year, that might put me off. Because I feel like you'd need like a 24, 25, 26-year-old kind of striker that's going to give you at least 5 more good years. Whereas a Bamford turning 29 in September, how many years are you going to get from him? I'm not sure. But if there aren't any options, maybe you go for him. I don't know. But I think maybe his age is a little bit of a concern for me. I'd go for Paulinho and Tony Paulinho, the Sporting Lisbon Portuguese international. He's destructive. Is Paulinho? I was impressed with him at the Euros, but yeah, interesting choice. Tony, I'm kind of waiting until the end of the season to have kind of more of an opinion on how Tony gets on in the Premier League. Manu says Watkins, Paqueta, Leon, and De Catalea. De Catalea is obviously someone I know that Manu's a big fan of. And very, very highly rated young guy playing, I believe, at Club Brugge as well. So yeah, but I don't know anything about him. So Manu, I defer to you always. And thanks for the shout on Bart. He helped us out to no end on FL, and that's down to you. So much appreciated. Christian says, we should have gone for Odsonne Edouards. Very easy to say that after popping up with 2 goals on your debut. Let's see how he does for the rest of the season. Maybe he will prove to be one that got away. Venkatesh says, if Aziz could build muscle, even though he's not a first-team player, then why are our coaches not working on that with Saka, Pepe, and Smith Rowe on building physique? Who is responsible in looking at this? I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because do you want Saka, who's a diminutive, skillful, low center of gravity, to bulk? Because that's going to take away from speed and agility. It's just part of it, isn't it? Whereas Aziz is your box-to-box, high amount of running, engine up and down the central part of the midfield, getting from one end of the pitch to the other, tackling, winning offensive duels. He needs to bulk up. He needs that muscle. Whereas Saka, I'm not sure. I mean, you look at Bayern Munich. We always look at Bayern Munich as a side that loves to get their key crucial players in certain positions bulked up. Alphonso Davies, Leon Goretzka, Robert Lewandowski. These key positions, striker, defence, central midfield. But you look at Kingsley Coman, you look at Serge Gnabry, you look at Leroy Sané, Musiala. Like these guys, diminutive, silky, tricky, not so much with the bulkiness, Venkatesh. So I wouldn't necessarily be going down the same route. Nick B, Traore is a force of nature. He's also someone that incredibly lacks technique. I don't think I'd sign him. And I don't think he's representative of what, for me, a winger is. He's just a little bit of... he's a little bit of an enigma, I suppose. He's a little bit mysterious on the side. He's a bit of an anomaly. That's a good word. He's a bit of an anomaly for his position. So there you go. Venkatesh says, Tom, what about Mane or Salah? Aren't they wingers? Aren't they world class? So what about Mane and Salah? Aren't they? Yeah, but I wouldn't describe them as bulky. Like, I wouldn't describe them as like muscly, bulky people. To be honest, I might be wrong, but that's how I wouldn't describe them as like your Goretzkas of this world. To be honest, tis a discussers, especially for growing youth or guys like Saka and Emil Smith-Rowe. Training heavyweight isn't that great if you are not fully developed. KD says Saka always on the floor, zero power, needs to build up his physique a bit. Vuk says bringing Kane to the Emirates, just imagine the meltdown of all the England pundits. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see that happen anytime soon. Kane's got a bit of a personality complex against Arsenal, I think, with the way that we let him go. Jermaine says, Tom, do you think Arteta is only looking to play the players that are committed to the club, like Laka, Eddie won't feature as much? Maybe so. We know that he said before, if you're not committed to the Arsenal, then you won't play as much. Jashar says, Tom, do you think Arsenal will buy or loan anyone in January? I think it will completely depend on injuries. If we've got a fully fit squad, I don't think we'll bring anyone in. It's as simple as that for me. JDB says, Tom, why would you sell Ainsley? He's done so well. As cool as ice. He has done the work that would be overlooked. Calm moves, ball and dribbles against Burnley. I just think that he's never going to make it as a starting option, JDB. And I know the argument there would be, look, he's good as a utility player, he's good as a backup. But there's two reasons. One, he does deserve a career, so send him out, sell him, let him play week in, week out somewhere that he can. Second one is we are a little bit lacking of options to sell. You look at the squad now. You've got Holding, you've got Ainsley Maitland-Niles, you've got Reece Nelson. I'm looking at the rest of the squad and thinking, where are we going to make money from? And Nketiah and Lacazette have their contracts expire. Leno, you could say, is another one that we can make money from, but then we'll have to invest in another goalkeeper because Hine and Okonkwo aren't ready for that number 2 spot. So that's why I look at Maitland-Niles as a bit of an asset to sell, JDB. So that's where I'm at with that one. Omar says, what's all the talk about physique? I mean, look at Mahrez, Messi, Bernardo. They don't go through bricks to do what they do. It's a really, really good point. Let's not spam the chat. Thank you very much. DJ says Rashford bulked up and he is still fast, but he's not like Goretzka levels of bulk, is he? He's still pretty streamlined, is Rashford. And I think part of it is just natural growth as he's got older, to be honest. Yes, he's still quick. I'm not saying you shouldn't build up any muscle. I think people often think when you say you shouldn't do as much of something and misconstrue that to say you shouldn't do any of it. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you don't need to bulk up anywhere near as much as, say, a box-to-box central midfielder needs to bulk up, like Aziz. Like Aziz, as the example that was used, needs to bulk up for his position. A winger doesn't need to bulk up anywhere near as much because you want to remain as, lightweight as possible. DJ says, hi, Tom. Would you sign Maddison if we have the money? No, we don't need him. Venkatesh, I know what you were saying about not bulky, but you did use Aziz as the example, and Aziz, as his position, is very different to a winger in how you bulk up muscle and how you build muscle. If you're going to use Aziz as an example, it's not going to compare in the same way for a wide player, if that makes sense. Rod says, clearly we need experience to add to this young squad. What profile names do you think we should add to the team? Yes, we do need to add experience. And then the striker position and the centre midfield are the opportunities. I think Basuma, who turns 26, is a really good option with plenty of experience for the centre midfield. At striker, you'd be looking at, I think, a Dominic Calvert-Lewin who turns 25, I think, fairly soon. Let me just check that. Calvert-Lewin. He turns 25 in March. So he'll be 26 during the 22-23 season if we could sign him then. Another good Premier League experienced option. So I think they're absolutely fine for that, to be honest. Katie says, who is better than Ben White and Saliba? Be honest. Considering Saliba is 6'4" and wins every header and doesn't need protection every game like White. I have no idea, Katie. I've not seen Saliba play in the Premier League, so I can't really tell you. Until I see Saliba and what he does in the Prem, I can't really give you... I mean, White's been playing in the Premier League and has been called up to the England international side, one of the best international teams in the world right now. So... I mean, you would argue White right now because he's, better playing out from the back and, he's more consistent as a defender. And that was Brighton's player of the season last year. So you'd argue White is the better player right now. But I need to see Saliba play in the league, in the Premier League. And we haven't seen that yet before I can really make a fair judgment. I can't compare them fairly because I've not seen Saliba play in the Premier League yet, and the opposition is different, and the quality of the opposition that he comes up against is different. And Saliba's playing in a back three. You have to remember that as well, like playing alongside players. I know he's outshining Luan Perez, but at the same time, he needs, for me, he needs to be playing in the Premier before I can make a fair comparison between the two, KD, to be honest. I'm just not saying that I think he shouldn't stay. I'd love to see Saliba come back and play for Arsenal. I want nothing more than for us to keep Saliba and play him. But I can't fairly replace the two. And I think it's unfair to continually compare them. And I think Ben White is getting a bit of a hard time because of the whole Saliba situation, which isn't his fault. It's just not his fault that the Saliba situation is what it is. People are kind of having a go at Ben White unfairly because of that. Benji says, what about looking at Alan Saint-Maximin? He give us a lot of progression of the ball and he holds up the play when he does his tricks up front. I still need more to be convinced by Alan. As I've said previously on the show, I think he's a lot of flair, a lot of show, no go. But I'm more than willing to be proved wrong as always. But for me right now, I wouldn't bid. And I think that Newcastle would ask for a lot of money. But I wouldn't go for him right now, to be honest. Jermaine says, Tom, I wish Saliba went to Newcastle on loan. So do I, mate. And I do criticise him for choosing to go back to France over a Premier League loan, to be honest. It is a criticism I have. What do you think that's unfair? It is what it is. That's my opinion. I'm critical of Saliba not going to a Premier League team. The club wanted him to go there. He didn't. It'd been better for his career. It would have been better for us to know how good he is in a Premier League setting. He chose to go to Marseille because the club really did push for a move to the Premier League. He didn't want to do it. Manu says, anyone of the gentlemen in the chat who could point me in the direction to watch the Wimbledon game? There's nowhere, Manu, I'm aware of that you can watch it. So I'm afraid I can't help you out there. John says, I thought Alan Saint-Maximin was Ainsley Maitland-Niles. Why? Why did you think that, John? Anyway, we're going to wrap things up there. As I said, please go click the link in the description to watch my showdown with Bailey on the Arsenal way. It's very, very much a good 6 minutes to go and check out. 6 minutes of your life. Go and watch it. It's very funny. Go subscribe to the channel as well. You won't regret it, I promise. It's very funny. And it shows how bad I am. I need to get back into six-a-side. And I am getting back into six-a-side. I am very happy to be getting back into football for the first time in nearly 3 years. But soon I will be indeed getting back on the pitch, which I'm looking forward to getting much better. Because you can tell from watching the video, that's the video of a guy that's not played football in nearly 3 years. So there you go. Have a fantastic day, people. I'll see you tomorrow morning for the 8 a.m. show. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. And as always, up the Arsenal.